I think we should, talk a little bit about the U.S. election since it's so close to election day. And one of the reasons that I think Israel's escalating, violence is spiraling out of control, is because of the political void in Washington. There's no one's really in charge right now, except for Jake Sullivan and the bloodless deep state characters. So no one's willing to actually put any brakes on, and all they care about is winning. There are reports that Kamala did a big event in Pennsylvania to reach out to quote unquote Jewish voters. Most Jewish voters vote for the same things that liberals vote for. They vote for on the economy, on women's reproductive rights, the typical liberal issues. Israel is not even in the top 10 of the concerns of the average Jewish American voter. But I think what they're talking about there is the Jewish donor class, which comprises a very small percentage of Jews overall in the US, but has a disproportionate influence on both parties and puts Israel first, tends to put Israel first. It's the Zionist donor class. And, in the Republican Party, many of them are Christians as well. But you have a problem right now for the Kamala campaign. We're getting closer and closer to election day, and they're slipping in the polls. They've slipped 5 points in all cumulative polls. And part of this has to do with the fact that the Nikki Haley Republicans, the kind of Republicans that live in the suburbs of urban areas and are therefore key swing voters, suburban soccer moms, and then like dads who might work in the defense industry who love war, the kind of Nicole Wallace Bush Republicans are going to Trump. They're suddenly put off by Kamala and they're moving to Trump. So I happened to be at a sports bar yesterday. I was watching NFL action. I'm like an American. I don't watch European football. I watch American football. I just grew up here, and that's just the way it is. So
your team is doing good for once this year, actually.
Although they lost.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, but they lost again.
I feel like I would alienate like 80% of my followers on Twitter if I started tweeting about NFL or like anything sports related.
Yes, you would.
And then the other 20% would be like, what is this guy talking about? Like, but anyway, the only reason I'm telling this story is because I was granted a window into the ad blitz that the Kamala campaign is pumping out nationally, as well as the Trump campaign. And it's really like NFL games are the key forum for TV ads, get out the vote ads, because the target audience is males of different demographics.
Yeah.
Trump has them, but if Kamala wants to prevent too many of them from going to Trump, and her ad campaign is specifically tailored to Nikki Haley, George W. Bush Republicans, and it's one of the most disgusting ads I've ever seen. Or offensive ads, not disgusting, but offensive to me, just because I remember during the George W. Bush era when the Democrats were campaigning against the Iraq War. And here's the ad. I mean, it's not a very good reproduction of it.
Donald Trump handpicked his White House team.
All right. The people who knew him best. I can like narrate it because the sound is bad. They're basically painting Trump as unstable. And so they bring in John Bolton, former national security advisor to Donald Trump, who is also George W. Bush's UN ambassador and the biggest coup-mongering, fanatical warmonger in any U.S. government in recent years, as a key Kamala Harris campaign proxy.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. And his defense secretary.
And now they bring out Mark Esper. Remember him?
Raytheon.
Yeah, Mr. Raytheon. He was basically a longtime Raytheon board member who came on in the Trump administration and did a pretty terrible job. And I think he helped sabotage the Afghan withdrawal that was supposed to take place under Trump.
Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets.
There's Jake Tapper.
I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members in these places our nation's security risk. Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is too big a risk for America. Donald Trump.
So, take it from them. Take it from Mark Esper, war profiteer, and John Bolton, coup monger. Donald Trump is a risk.
Very similar to the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016, where basically Trump was a danger because he's close to Russia, and the playbook doesn't work. I mean, if they were smart, they would focus on, Trump not draining the swamp like he promised to. But the problem is they can't really do that because they have very similar policies. They're also controlled by billionaires and titans.
Yeah.
So they're left, and they're so now identified with neocons that they can't help but put them forward as the voices of reason. I mean, Kamala Harris recently campaigning with Liz Cheney. We covered this last time. That's who they are now. And then what's the other prong of their strategy is rolling up Barack Obama to lecture black men. I mean, you've seen that clip,
can
right?
you pull that clip out?
Yeah, I have it. I mean, does anybody still listen to this guy? I don't know, but here he is.
Is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy.
All right, it's a little quiet. So I'm going to speed this up too because he speaks in that.
Yeah,
slow.
well, he doesn't have teleprompters, so he's not very
Yeah.
compelling when he doesn't have teleprompters. He has long pauses.
Yeah. So I'm going to speed this up.
And turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities, as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak.
I'm sorry. I'm not black. Maybe it's not my place to say. When he says the brothers, he just sounds like he's pretending.
He's code switching.
Yeah, he just sounds like he's pretending. I mean, this is someone who grew up in Hawaii. I mean, there's a whole book about this where, this was not a strong part of his identity. His black identity was not a big part of his upbringing, raised by a white mother, anyway, but it just sounds like he's pretending to me. I mean, maybe that's not my place to say, but
I'll say it.
Yeah.
He was raised by a white woman in Hawaii. His father was in Africa. He was not the descendant of slaves. He didn't know what that was like. Yes, he suffered, you face discrimination if you come from an African heritage in the US because there's like person-to-person racism and so on. But the people Obama's speaking to come from a very different experience than him. His mother was probably a CIA asset. She worked for USAID in Indonesia at a time when Indonesia was purging communists with the support of the CIA. It's not clear what she was doing there. And according to Obama's biographer, what was his name? David Garris?
David Garrow.
David Garrow.
Yeah.
He, was in love with a white woman who was his college sweetheart at Occidental, but then he went to Chicago, and to be legitimized, he got involved with Reverend Jeremiah Wright.
And he told that woman he was in love with, I can't be with you. I need to basically find a black spouse to be elected. That's apparently what he told her, his girlfriend at the time. Yeah.
And so Reverend Jeremiah Wright, who comes from the black prophetic tradition, of the tradition of black liberation theology, and was a massive supporter of Palestine, who was leading campaigns against South African apartheid in Chicago. He takes Obama under his wing and introduces him to Michelle, who comes from actually African-American or Black American family that it kind of worked its way up into the middle class. And Michelle legitimized Obama in Chicago. He then becomes a community organizer. He even goes and seeks support from Edward Said, Ali Abu Nima, and Rashid Khalidi at a fundraiser for the Dahisha refugee camp, and then turns his back on everybody once he runs for president. And now he's coming back around as he's building this giant multi-million-dollar Obama globalist library in Hyde Park on community land. And the community organizers are actually organizing against the former community organizer, Obama. And he comes back to lecture the black men whose pants he told to pull up when he was president, while he delivered them absolutely nothing except the lowest rate of black home ownership since the 1950s. So screw this guy. And it just shows how weak the whole Democratic Party's campaign is, that they're not really pushing. They're not pushing the issues that people care about. They care about the economy. That's just what everyone in America cares about. They don't want these wars. They don't want to be giving money to Ukraine. Even Democrats don't now. They don't want this. They don't want this genocide. Trump has pulled even in Michigan. And these people are going to pay the price because all they have at the end of the day is this identitarian, condescending, empty politics. And it's not working for Kamala, who also doesn't have that experience. And her code switching doesn't work either. So it's so offensive. It's just so offensive to me. And I really, think they should face a reckoning.
Do you want to hear more of Obama, or do you think we got it?
I don't know if we need any more Obama. We got the point. He's lecturing black men because they won't do what he wants.
And he's saying that, like, there's been a drop in support from black men who voted for him, and black men who are now pledging to support Kamala. And he's saying that, like, he's suggesting that that's because, like, black men don't think it's a black woman's turn. There's some sexism involved here. No, it's because Barack Obama, the Democrats offered them nothing, and they're sellouts, and people are tired of it, and people aren't going to be bullied anymore into voting for them just by like Obama coming out every year and lecturing people, and running as like the salvation for like racial harmony in America. That was like the premise of his campaign. If you vote for me, then racism is over. It was just completely cynical and a scam, and people are tired of it.
Well, and it ended up with Black Lives Matter, which was like the end of the Obama era, but also completely contravened his post-racial message of unity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Obama in many ways was sort of a product of the Israel lobby. Remember, he declared that his real name was Baruch, or his name was meant the same as Baruch when he would meet with pro-Israel donors. He had Dennis Ross, Israel lobbyist, write his speech to AIPAC, where he declared that Jerusalem will never be divided, meaning there would be no Palestinian capital in Jerusalem. And then in one of his first foreign trips, he went to Sderot in Israel.
And it's telling, right, that he comes from Chicago, or like the mythology of him is coming from Chicago, because who also was from Chicago is Jesse Jackson, who was a supporter of Palestinian rights, made that an issue, way before everybody else back in the 1980s when he ran for president. And, I mean, I've heard you make this point before. I think Finkelstein said it too, that basically Obama was a way for like the like Democratic elite to put forward a Jesse Jackson like figure, like the same sort of, biography, the same background, but without any of the politics. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at all of Obama's advisors, his speechwriters, they're all, with the exception of maybe one or two people, they're all white.
Yeah.
It's like a white circle. And that's who he identifies with, and that's who he still continues to serve.
Or Cornel West said Obama likes to hang out with upper middle class Jewish men and wants their approval. And it's like, what did Obama do on his last birthday? He hung out with Steven Spielberg and Bruce Springsteen, and like went to a Springsteen concert. Like, there's no black people at Springsteen concerts. They're huge. There are like 70,000 white people who are all over the age of 50, maybe 60. And Obama, and like Michelle's playing the tambourine on stage. Like, come on. He just came out of a lab. Jesse Jackson was like covered in Martin Luther King's blood when Martin Luther King was shot.
Literally. Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
And then he got just destroyed. Remember, they destroyed Jesse Jackson. Obama was at the forefront of destroying him. And Jesse Jackson was caught on a hot mic on Fox News right before an appearance. And they leaked it, of course, to destroy him. And he said, he said to the other guest, Obama's talking bad about black people again. He's lecturing black people again. I want to rip his balls off. And Jesse Jackson went like that. I mean, we could probably find the footage. And that was the end. You never saw Jesse Jackson again. The last time Jesse Jackson was really seen, that I saw him in public, was when he was trying to deliver food, as I did, to the protesters inside the Venezuelan embassy. Like, he was real to the end.
Maybe they also were going to accuse him of beating that 50-year-old woman, like they did you. Yeah.
It was an amazing scene. I mean, it was Black Alliance for Peace activists had come to deliver the food, and the Venezuelan, Gusano squad was brutalizing them and beating them, all these white Venezuelans. And then Jesse Jackson walks up and takes the bag, and you can see that he's affected by Parkinson's.
Yeah.
But he takes the bag, and the DC police suddenly take all of the Venezuelan opposition fanatics and move them to the side. These are black cops, and it's because they just respected Jesse Jackson and would not allow anyone to touch him. And he was able to get that bag in. And that's when the police mounted their militarized Waco style raid to get these protesters out of there, because they were like, this is getting to be too much. So to the end, I mean, Jesse Jackson definitely had his flaws. There are allegations of corruption at Rainbow Push, whatever. But this is the kind of leadership that couldn't be allowed to rise to the fore. And go back and watch like the 1984, 1988 debates that he was in, the primary debates, when he talks about foreign policy. He really had serious foreign policy chops.
Yeah.
He helped get US hostages out of Syria. Nobody remembers that.
No.
And then look at Barack Obama's statement on October 7th. They could have been written by AIPAC. It's like, you're not even president anymore. Jimmy Carter wrote a book called Peace, Not Apartheid after he was president. Like he actually said the truth. Barack Obama still can't tell the truth. And you know he knows what the truth is. He's just too much of a tool.